thank you for being on the Scrunch Creator Economy show. It's so fabulous to have you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much, Danielle.
Now, we usually like to get started with giving people a little bit of context as to how you got to where you are today. Now, you are the marketing chief for the Good Seeds new probiotic drink, Sorted, but I know...
Prebiotic.
Prebiotic. Okay, so
prebiotic, sorry.
This is going to be a chat. We're going to have to get into all of this. But before we get into that and the work you're doing today, how did you get here? What's your sort of career background?
All right. So I have had a rather scatterbrained sort of a career, but in hindsight, it all kind of makes sense. So I started off in tech with actual systems development and
Cool.
programming. From there on, I picked up a lot of data-oriented skills and data analytics skills, and that came handy when I picked up a role with a wine company. In fact, it's I think Australia's second largest publicly listed wine company, Treasury Wine Estates. So there was a lot of analytics work to be done there, but that was part of the supply chain. And while doing that, I also had the good fortune of working cross-functionally. So I was working with the finance teams, with the strategy team, and also the marketing team. So that gave me a very good understanding of how a large-scale organization actually operates, and what are some of the challenges and what are some of the opportunities there. And then from there on, I had this itch to start my own thing, and meal kits were a hot thing back in 2016. So I decided we were going to do a slightly better meal kit.
Cool.
And that was called Feastively. But after about 3 years, we had to pull the plug on that because economically it wasn't going anywhere. But a lot of the, being a startup at the time, I think that's what really put me into a mindset of looking into growth marketing avenues and starting to build programs of marketing and look for, those low cost but high impact channels. And at the time, it seemed like, okay, I just need this one social media post to go viral, and then we'll be set. But,
the dream.
But it doesn't quite. Yeah, I know that's the pipe dream for everyone, but that doesn't quite. So a lot of hard lessons while trying to build the business up as well. And I think what was good was I saw this opportunity in the market to help other emerging brands and other emerging startups as well. So initially, I started off running an agency, and I was actually working. Good Seed was a client for the agency.
Cool.
But then it got to a stage where, they wanted to raise capital, and we became part of that process as well. And one thing led to another, and they poached me as their head of marketing. Of course, it's still, relatively part-time. It's not a full-time gig at the moment. But at the moment, I've got one foot in the agency side and the other foot on the brand side. Awesome. So it's a really good experience because on the brand side, we can go much deeper in terms of what we want to do. So whether it's utilizing emerging channels, different channels, but also looking at the analytics side of things, but also integrating things with the back end of the business in terms of what does the supply chain experience actually look like from the consumer's perspective. So I'm trying to mix and match some of the new knowledge from the startup era in terms of market building, then mashing it up with the supply chain side of things and understanding how those things work, and then finally adding a little bit of the tech skill set with a lot of marketing automation, etc., and also some of the analytics tools to create that well-rounded sort of marketing team inside the organization. So yeah, like I said, in hindsight, it makes sense, but at the time, I had no idea I would land up here. So yeah,
that's so cool, and I absolutely love that because I guess coming from the influencer marketing world, I have been banging on the drum about data for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
And, and a lot of people struggle with the data component of marketing, but it is the most important part of marketing, I think, because I don't think influencers or creators are a silver bullet. I don't think any marketing strategy is really a silver bullet to anyone's business. It's really about understanding the data and trying everything and optimizing everything until you do figure out what's right for you and your growth.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So how do you then approach, taking all of those elements? How do you approach that at the Good Seed? And talk to me about this biotic drink.
All right, okay. So sorted is it's a, well, we call it a new kind of soft drink, and it quite
Mm,
literally is, because uh sorted was created to challenge the traditional soft drink category by creating something that can be consumed guilt-free, but at the same time it actually has enhancing properties as far as health benefits are concerned. So it is a prebiotic soft drink. So prebiotics are the plant-based fiber. They can be soluble or insoluble, and that's what your gut microbiome actually feeds on. So
mm.
in order to maintain a flourishing and healthy gut microbiome, to ensure that you don't have digestive issues, and then it has far-reaching impacts on your moods, your stress levels, your skin, etc. So a
Sounds like
lot
I
of it
need this
comes
in my
from the
life.
gut.
Yes.
Yeah, so when they call it the second brain, I mean, you could almost, that you can take it on face value that it is quite literally our second brain. And looking at the current consumer preferences and some of the issues that are emerging out of eating too much processed food, etc.
Mm,
Like 9 in 10 Australians don't get enough fiber, and you look at the number of digestive issues and some of the serious concerns, health concerns people have had. A lot of them are related to the management of a healthy gut microbiome. So that's why we've got the prebiotic element, but then there's more to the soft drink. So, and then the other thing is, so it's got about up to 30% of your daily fiber needs. So that's you have one can plus a couple of pieces of fruit and veg, and you're set for the day. But then it was a matter of understanding, okay, how do we make it taste good like a soft drink as
mm.
well? Because having a health drink is one thing, but if it tastes like vinegar, well, that's hard to
No one's
follow.
gonna drink it. That's right.
So we said, okay, how do we actually make it palatable? Because that's the only way you can actually create and enforce a behavior that's actually good for you as
Mm.
well. So from a sweetness point of view, like we're using a plant-based, protein-based sweetener, which is called thaumatin, which is much lighter than some of the sugar alcohols like your xylitol and
Mm.
erythritol. It's also easier on the tummy compared to stevia and aspartame as well. And the last one was, working out, okay, well, that's all nice and good, but if something's made in the lab with all the chemicals, I mean, that can't be good for your gut microbiome. So that's why all the ingredients and the coloring, they're all 100% natural as well.
Wow.
So it's 100% natural. It's got a plant protein based sweetener. It's got prebiotic fiber. And on top of that, it's low carb and low calories as well.
Oh
So
my gosh, this is like a magical drink.
so yeah, we quite literally looked at the market research and said, okay, what are the key key
Mm,
purchasing criteria, and we made sure we could tick off as many boxes
yes.
as possible. And to be honest, like there's nothing quite like it in the market that ticks that many boxes at
Mm,
the moment. So we're we're at the forefront of a category that is still emerging, and that will continue to emerge over the next 5 to 10 years.
amazing. And where is it available?
So it's currently available at Coles, mainly around the East Coast. So
Nice.
Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales, Canberra, and Tasmania. It's also landed in South Australia as of last month. It's available at AMPM and some of the Foodland stores as well.
Cool.
It's also available at some of the independent stores in Victoria through IGA and Mercato, and some of the other health stores like Terra Madre and Rose Street Pantry and Moses and Co, etc. So there's a few opportunities, and of course you can buy it online as well if you're based out of WA or places where Coles doesn't stock it. You can always get it online.
Amazing. So then your role from a marketing point of view is both e-commerce and driving retail sales.
That's correct. Yes, exactly. So initially, when we first launched the brand, which was back in November last year, we were originally focusing on a direct-to-consumer model because there was still a bit of flux in terms of people visiting retail outlets and retailers taking on new products within a category. So initially we worked on the direct to consumer model, and for a good 2 to 3 months we really pushed it hard during that summer as well. And that was quite good because that then gave us the meeting with Coles, and got us accepted into Coles as well, because we had proven track record and customer testimonials about how they were accepting or approaching the product as well.
Cool.
And sure enough, in February we had to change the tactic or change the strategy a little bit, because now it was a mixed model, because that's when we got listed with Coles and some of the independent stores. So very quickly we had to move away from driving online sales to actually creating mass awareness for the brand, so that people would actually know about the brand before they even walked in to the retail outlets.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the interesting thing I find about the retail model is there's kind of that, you need to prove traction. You need to prove that there's brand awareness. I've worked on a few campaigns that were literally just for the retail packs to try and get into wholesalers, just to prove that they kind of had some level of traction. So I always find that interesting. So how have influencers or creators played a role in, well, I guess this current business, but maybe some past ones as well?
Yeah. So one of the most significant changes that came about when we switched our strategy was looking at the overall media landscape and understanding that, okay, influencer marketing is one media channel that has to be utilized as part of the overall media mix. So instead of focusing on specific platforms and trying to optimize for a particular platform, we started to optimize for more of an outcome. So for a marketing
I love that.
Cool. And for a product that's sitting on the retail shelf, I think brand awareness and product awareness are quite important. So we see things like display advertising, video advertising, looking at on-site sampling, digital sampling, influencer marketing, utilizing creators and utilizing paid social, etc. All is part of a massive media mix that has to be tweaked depending on the season as well. For instance, right now in the middle of winter, we're relying more on programmatic display advertising, just so the brand is reinforced in people's minds. And that is to ensure that as soon as the weather starts to improve, there's that strong consideration for the brand before someone walks into the store. But then again, during summer months, we try to go for more direct marketing-based models where we can actually push more of the product and create a higher demand from their markets as well. And which is why, we used this time, especially this winter sort of period, to actually launch our creator and influencer campaigns, because we wanted to make sure that people are aware. So that way, when there's promotional activity in store, or whether we're trying to actually drive traffic to the stores, people at least know about the benefits of the product and are actively trying to add it to their weekly grocery shop as well.
Awesome. And so I really like how you use the word optimize for an outcome, because I think that one of the reasons I love influencer marketing is because you can kind of use it for so many different strategies. There's people that use it just to get user generated content. There's people for brand awareness, and then people that can track it down to, that final sale. So I love that you said, optimizing it for a particular outcome. How has that changed when you talk to influencers? So do you brief them differently? Do you get them to do different things? How does it actually translate from a strategic point of view?
So I think the brief is underrated for an influencer and creator strategy, because the brief is pretty much everything. That could be the difference between meaningful content versus completely meaningless content. Because at the end of the day, we're not trying to create content for the sake of it. We're not trying to fill up a calendar as such. We're outcome driven. So if the outcome is brand awareness, we try to ensure that we're going after influencers who firstly have high degree of brand affinity, that they have to be able to resonate with the audience that we're going after. And then secondly, they have to be able to present the brand the way we'd like the brand to be presented. But then from a brief perspective, we give them guidance around what we'd like to see. And as far as possible, we firstly give them an opportunity to try the product so that they understand how it fits in the lifestyle.
Yes.
Because we're looking for authenticity of messages as well. So it's quite easy to just simply copy paste what the brand wants you to say, versus relating the brand to your own life's needs and your own personal needs, and then communicating that to your audience. So as far as possible, we respect the creators and influencers, creative flair and the creative skill set, but then simply give them guidance around what they can and can't say. I think in the early days, one of the things that used to happen a lot was people getting confused between prebiotics and probiotics, and that was something we had to monitor quite closely, because that would have put us in trouble legally. So that was something we do monitor a lot. But then beyond that, I think what we initially thought about was that we were going to have stages of different objectives, which had to be lined up properly. Yep. We're still very much in the brand awareness stage. We've tried a few different models there as well. So we didn't just go with the generic sort of model of simply doing gifting or simply doing a paid post as such. So we initially, because we wanted to measure performance, we went straight off for an affiliate-based model. But I think that was too early for an affiliate model, because the brand hasn't been established quite yet. So we didn't have much of an uptake from the influencer community for something like that. So we then eased it up a little bit. We started with more of a gifting based approach. But then what we found was with gifting, because we weren't actually telling them what we wanted back in return, I think the content was a bit hit and miss. And because it's a gift, you can only go back with feedback so many times before you get completely shut off by the creator. So then we took on a more focused approach. We started utilizing some of the existing platforms where we could put a very clear brief so that the creators and influencers would actually understand what to communicate and how to communicate it. So the initial, 2 campaigns that we did, they were very much based around how does this product fit in your life, and just talk about that. And then on top of that, you can perhaps pick on, a couple of value propositions that we'd like you to touch upon, and also, maybe elicit some of the features of the product so people clearly understand who it's for as well. And I think we'll continue that until at least the end of spring, because we want to make sure that there's enough volume in terms of the number of eyeballs we're getting on the content as well. But at the same time, we're also monitoring engagement to see, well, are people actually interacting and engaging with the content? And what that then does is it actually helps us understand, okay, where do we have to create reinforcement and repetition? Which creators do we want to actually reinforce the message with? And where we might have to find someone else with whose audience the messages and the product might resonate a little bit better.
That's so cool, because I think that there's a lot of people that think if they just find the right influencer, they're going to post and their whole world will be changed. But I always say to people, it's just like social ads or Google ads. It's not set and forget. You're testing different images, different copy, different call to action, looking at different content and different ad sets for different stages of the purchasing funnel. I love that you're saying that about influencer marketing as well, because it is, there's different strategies, there's different stages of the buying cycle. Some influencers work, some content works, some doesn't. So unless you're evaluating and optimizing, then you won't have a successful influencer strategy.
Exactly. No, absolutely agree.
And I love too that you experimented with affiliate and gifting and kind of landed on more of the structured sort of paid first, because it is interesting. I think that each of them have their own value, but at the right time. And especially I love the comment about, when you are gifting someone, there's only so many times that you can go back and give the influencer feedback, because a lot of them, won't take on any feedback at all if you do just gift. It's sort of a, if we post, we post, if we don't, we don't. So,
Yeah.
you know, some are, you know, it kind of just depends on where the influence is at, but having that awareness going into that strategy is really important because, you know, obviously still gifting costs money, right? Like it's still product that you're parting with. So you need to be willing to sacrifice some of that product for influencers that don't end up posting, or the content's a bit lackluster. It is kind of a bit of a risk with that strategy as well.
And oftentimes what we've also done is, you know, one of the other things we've added into the whole mix is, you know, finding our own creators who can create branded content for us as well.
Yes, I love
mainly
that.
because with branded content, we can be a bit more prescriptive in terms of what we'd like to see as a result. Then when we add that to our paid media plan, we can test very quickly as to what sort of a creative actually works. We then use that to refine our brief for the next campaign for influencers so that we can actually give them a bit of guidance around, you know, what sort of content actually works as well. But also, you know, there's a fine line between prescribing what we want versus letting the influencers' creativity take over and them communicating it in their own authentic style to the audience as well.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I've seen, and I don't know if you've had got any thoughts on this, but I've seen some brands use influencer content and their own content in paid ads, and the influencer content perform a lot better in paid media. Have you had any comparisons as to whether that's been the case for you?
So for most KPIs, for instance, if you're looking at CPM, if you're looking at cost per engagement, if you're looking at even, you know, we've used it for traffic campaigns as well. We've also used them for conversion-focused campaigns, and like it depends with the branded content, right? So if the branded content still looks like user-generated content, the performance seems to be on par. But I think where things become different when we're looking at branded content partnership and sponsored posts. When the content's actually presented from the influencer's account, it tends to perform much better because it comes across as a one-to-one engagement between the content creator and the viewer. Whereas when you have those little tags saying, you know, so and so with so and so brand in a paid partnership, I think those get called out, and we do get comments, especially on social accounts. We do get a fair few comments. You know, the people do see through it that, you know, most likely someone's being paid to say it. But I think that's where we've taken a slightly different approach. That when we send out product for appraisal, we make it very clear to the creator and the influencers that they don't have to take on the project. They
Awesome.
only take on the project if they really like it, if they can see themselves using the product, if they can see themselves talking about the product to their friends and family, because otherwise it actually looks like someone's being paid to say it.
It comes across inauthentic, doesn't it?
It does. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that that's, you know, one of the big trends that I'm seeing now. Well, probably in the last couple of years, I think it's a post-COVID trend really, is people really, really want that authentic integration. Consumers really want to know intimately what the influencer genuinely uses in their day-to-day life. Do you think that that's the case? Have you seen that or any other trends sort of emerge in the last couple of years of
Oh, absolutely. So we've looked for people with certain specific lifestyle, right? So if there are people if there are moms with kids who are trying to get their kids to stop drinking soft drinks, but they still, you know, they feel guilty for holding things back, so they want to give something at least. Then we have diabetics who can't, you know, consume sugar-based products. We have people with digestive health issues such as IBS. We might have, or they might be on a low FODMAP diet. We've also looked for people who are, let's say, preparing for a specific, you know, fitness competition, who need to really control the calories, etc. So we try to really find people in whose life this can actually fit.
Yeah.
Because once they actually consume the product, we know that the product will perform well from a taste profile point of view. Then it becomes a case of how the product fits in their specific lifestyle. And I think that message is quite important because, you know, you can rattle out all the value propositions and the features of the product that the brand wants to say.
Yes.
But without that, I think that intersection of how it actually fits or how they are actually consuming the product, without that sort of message being put forth, I think the authenticity is very hard to earn otherwise.
Yeah, and I like that it's storytelling for me, really. It's, what are all of those different scenarios in different people's lives that we add value to, and how can we use somebody who is going through that particular issue to communicate that story and talk about their own personal experiences. And I think that's the wonderful thing about influencers, is that you have the ability to do. A brand really doesn't have the ability to do that. We can say, we do this, we do this, we do this, but nobody cares. Being able to communicate those authentic stories through influencers is awesome. So what do you sorry, you go.
And I think the interesting thing there is, I think beyond the point, as a brand, you've got to back away a little bit in terms of how the message comes across. Because especially for social platforms, firstly, you have to be respectful of the platform in terms of what sort of content you actually get back as well. For instance, if you went ahead and tried to do like more of an inform and educate type of piece of content, if you put it up on something like TikTok, that might not really work very well. Whereas if you did something that has entertainment value, it can work fairly well across different platforms. But then it might be that it might underperform on something like Facebook because, that's just not the nature of the content being consumed there. So I think there is that fine line between making sure that the brand message is communicated, but also not trying to take complete control the actual message, while at the same time ensuring that the content you're receiving back is it's native to the platform for which it's being designed.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think's coming next? We've talked a lot about, optimizing, really understanding what the brand stands for, the stories, the consumer you want to connect with, the right influencers, testing. Where do you think this is all going? What do you think's next for the influencer and creator economy?
I think one of the things that we're starting to see a lot of is that the content or the creative itself is more influencer driven and consumer driven, as opposed to being brand driven. So what I mean by that is, previously you'd have these really pretty pictures in massive studios, multi-day photo shoots, models coming in, etc. But I think the era for those perfectly curated images, I think we're starting to move past that a little bit now, to the point that things that look a bit more raw, things that look a bit more or feel a bit more real, are much more well received by consumers, and especially in a time when, like there was a time when the brand could get away with saying whatever they like. And you'd have to sift through the web to read reviews to actually figure out, is that in fact legit?
I'm the #1 brand on the planet.
whereas now that message can be communicated by people whom consumers already trust. And I think what's happening is that we're seeing a shift in how media is consumed. So a lot of that power around influencing masses is to some degree shifting away from the old media publishing houses into the hands of these creators, where each creator is in themselves a media platform. And what that's led to is the kind of creative that actually transcends the social media sort of space and can be utilized across, you could use it for a massive video campaign, you could use it for display out of home campaign. You could use it for your basic display and your native campaigns as well. You could even use it for content marketing if you still feel inclined. In fact, to the point, you could even send testimonials from influencers even within a B2B sort of context. so that people understand, okay, if there's a high synergy between the influence, whom the influencer represents, and the business you're trying to transact with, you can always convince the other party about the merits of your brand and your product through that. So I think what will happen is the media that's been created through influencer marketing will start to move out of the social space, and it'll start to move into some of the more traditional spaces as well, where it's a matter of seeing the same familiar face across, and that's already happening to some degree. I think some of the bigger brands are already doing that quite well, and I think that we'll start seeing a lot more of that, where instead of doing the perfectly art directed shots, you'll see more of these raw, real, authentic sort of images and videos coming through.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, you are incredible, Harry. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today on the Creator Economy Show. I know, as the marketers and agencies that tune into the show, they would have got a ton of value. So I really appreciate your time and being here today.
My pleasure, Daniel. Thank you for having me here.